In this video, I'm going to show you my technique for brazing. And since I'm not a machine shop expert, I don't have years of experience in a machine shop. My day job is a computer programmer. I thought I'd point out the mistakes I make along the way as well as the successes. So let's get into it. I wanted to have a dedicated wrench for my drill press. My drill press has a nut for adjusting that's a 15/16 inch nut. And the only wrench I had that was 15/16 was this short little wrench. Sears wanted $15 for a full-size wrench, so I decided to take this 19mm wrench, cut its head off, and cut the other open-end part of the stubby wrench off, and braze the two together to make a longer handle for this 15/16 inch wrench. So I bought some brazing rods. They're both flux-coated. One set is bronze and the other is nickel silver. Also bought some extra flux, which is not the right kind of flux for this purpose. And I have some MAP gas and some oxygen that I'm going to mix together with my micro torch. This torch is just big enough to do the job. A larger torch probably would be nicer for this application, but does the job. Also used a gas mask to protect myself from some of the gases that are off by the process. Also used an angle grinder. I had to use it by hand because it's what I had. I didn't have a better tool for cutting it, but you can do the job. It's a little less safe to do it by hand, but we'll see that in a minute. Have a belt sander from Harbor Freight. Once you balance the wheels on this thing, it's pretty nice. Also used a grinder for some of the cleanup work later. As you can see there, probably shouldn't have used it to grind the non-ferrous metal, and a wire wheel. I also used two bench vices to hold the two pieces that I wanted to braze together. As you can see here, they have some nice pivot action to them. Very useful, and I can move them on the bench. Here you can see I'm using my angle grinder and cutting it by hand. It's important to note that this is the more dangerous approach. I believe I can do it safely, but you have to be very careful. Don't rush it, because if you push the disc into a deeper gouge in the metal, much more likely that it will pinch in the groove, and it could break the disc, throwing parts out at you, or just yank the part out of your hand, and you could increase the chances of cutting yourself with a disc. Here's the end result. So it's probably best to use a proper tool for this. This is just what I had. Here's some couple of neodymium magnets I pulled out of a broken hard drive and put them in a plastic bag. Helps me to pick up some of the filings that are strewn over my concrete basement floor here. Worked pretty well. That Harbor Freight chop saw thing was kind of useless, so didn't use that. So now it's easy to remove the magnets from the bag, and the filings will stay on the outside, and you can throw the filings away pretty easily that way. Use my Harbor Freight belt sander to clean up the mating surfaces for the metal. You can get some idea of what that'll look like when I join the two pieces together. It's also important to clean up the surfaces around the area you're going to braze, so that the bronze will flow and stick a lot better. Have a stronger bond with a clean metal versus like oily or messed up metal. And this also has some kind of chrome coating on there, so cleaning that off is a good idea. Here you can see I've got them clamped in my my articulated bench vices. Some people suggested I could add some grooves there to increase the strength of this wrench for the bronze to fill into the grooves and increase the surface area for the bronze. In my case, it didn't seem necessary. It was strong enough with just having the bronze flow along the outer surface here. Here I'm going to apply the extra flux. I don't think it hurt the application any, but was really intended for electronic soldering, so probably a lot of it got burned off or just didn't do any good with the super high heat for the bronze. But the flux coating on the bronze rods themselves was sufficient. Here I'm turning on the map gas and adding the oxygen. I want to make it sort of the blue area of the flame to be sort of a pencil shape. I really had to max out the amount of map gas and oxygen on my little torch could put out to do the job. I think a larger torch would be beneficial here, but that's all I had. It's also suggested I could have oriented these wrenches more flat instead of vertical, and probably could have done a better job with the brazing that way as well. You can also cut off a piece of the bronze rod and make it like a little stick laying across the surfaces, and that might have been something I could have tried. But as it was, the result still was sufficient for my purposes. The wrench is plenty strong enough. We'll see the ugly soldering joint here, the braze joint here in a second. But you really do have to have quite a bit of heat. And this torch just has enough to do the job. Not pretty, but for what its purpose is, it was more than sufficient. Also used my grinding wheel. I shouldn't have used the grinding wheel to grind the non-ferrous bronze, because that just loads the grinding wheel up. But the wire wheel is good, works well. But you have to be careful with the wire wheel. Don't stand in the plane, because sometimes little bits of wire, like just at that moment there, little bits of wire get flung off at high speed, so you don't want to stand in the way of the wire wheel there. And here's the result. A little ugly, not professional, but it does work, and works well enough for me. So in my mind, it was a success. And then the very next day, I happened to go to Ace Hardware and saw they had the wrench I really wanted in the first place for about $5. So I went ahead and bought it anyway. But I'll probably still use my dedicated wrench and just keep this one as a memento, I suppose.